There are moments in everyday life that seem trivial, hardly worth mentioning, yet they can stir up a powerful wave of emotions within us. It might be when a friend makes an ill-timed joke while we are exhausted, when a loved one offers clumsy criticism that dampens our mood, or simply when someone cuts in line without so much as an apology. In that instant, everything seems to explode. We feel the blood rush to our face, our heart beating faster, our hands tensing, our breath quickening. And then anger rises like a reflex. We may blurt out harsh words, walk away abruptly, or remain coldly silent as a form of punishment. But after it all, only fatigue and emptiness remain. Questions echo in the mind. What did I just do? Why could something so small trigger such an intense reaction? I have found myself in those moments too, more than once. Sometimes I was angry because of genuine injustice. But at other times, the only reason was that my ego had been touched. I once justified it by saying I was simply hot-tempered, that everyone loses control sometimes, that once the anger passed, everything would return to normal. Yet as I grew older, I realized nothing truly passes if we do not learn to face and observe anger directly. Each burst of anger, even lasting only seconds, can be enough to damage a relationship, shatter the atmosphere of a conversation, or rob us of our inner peace. That is why I began to learn how to pause, to sit quietly and truly observe my anger. I ask myself, where does it come from? Why, in the same situation, am I calm sometimes and explosive at others? Why does a certain remark not affect me one day, but the next day makes me boil? And I realized the cause does not lie in the other person. It lies in the state of my own inner world at that very moment. When I am unsettled, carrying unresolved conflicts, or weighed down by unacknowledged emotions, even the smallest external trigger can become the drop that spills the cup. Anger, ultimately, does not come from outside. It is something already inside us, merely waiting for a spark. I once read a line in a Buddhist text. Anger is the child crying inside you. It does not need to be punished, nor should it be abandoned. It only needs to be held with mindfulness. That sentence touched me deeply. I suddenly understood that every time I feel anger, it is a part of me still unhealed rising to the surface. It might be wounds from childhood, moments of feeling dismissed, belittled, unheard. All those seemingly dormant memories awaken, taking form through my strong reactions to the world around me. From then on, I no longer saw anger as an enemy. I began to see it as a signal, a sign that I need to return to myself, that something inside is waiting to be acknowledged and understood. Anger, in its deepest nature, is not evil. It only becomes dangerous when we fail to recognize its presence, letting it carry us away, control our words and actions, cloud our wisdom. The Buddha taught, when a single thought of anger arises, countless doors of obstacles open. It is not that anger itself is wrong, but that in anger the mind becomes clouded. When the mind is clouded, wisdom does not shine. And without wisdom, mistakes are easily made. Confucianism also says, the noble man is not controlled by emotions, meaning that a true person of virtue does not allow anger to dictate their actions. The frightening thing is not anger itself, but not knowing that we are angry. In that state of unawareness, we act unconsciously, hurt others, and only later regret it. But if we can recognize in the very moment, I am angry, I am reacting from a wound, then the power of anger is already cut in half. I began practicing naming my emotions, not to suppress or control them, but to be present with them, like a mother gently holding her crying child. Anger too needs to be seen, understood, and soothed. When we can stay with it, without running away, judging, or projecting it onto others, we gradually learn to transform it into empathy, understanding, and sometimes even compassion. I practiced sitting still, breathing slowly and deeply, refraining from speaking in haste. I learned the art of silence, not as suppression, but as awareness that words spoken in anger may break what can never be mended. I learned to ask myself, what inside me has been touched? What am I truly hurt about? Am I unloading onto someone else a pain they did not cause? And I learned forgiveness. Forgiveness not because the other deserves it, but because I deserve peace. Forgiveness not as forgetting, but as choosing not to let anger control me one moment longer. I share this not because I have mastered my temper. I still get angry, still sometimes react too quickly. But now I am no longer angry unconsciously. I know when I am angry, and that alone is already a great step forward on the path of self-mastery. For the moment we pause in the midst of anger is the moment we stop being a victim of emotion. It is the moment we begin to be in charge of our words, our actions, and, more profoundly, our entire life. If anger is the blazing fire outside, then what fuels it are the dry logs accumulated within us long ago. Not everyone or everything can make us angry, and not always because of a wrong word do we erupt. The truth is, we only truly explode when there is something unhealed within. Many people think anger is simply a spontaneous reaction, but when I began to turn inward, I realized every time I was angry, it was because some hidden wound inside me was touched. It might be the fear of not being recognized, the sorrow of being belittled, or the loneliness of abandonment from childhood. Those memories, if not acknowledged and healed, lie dormant like emotional landmines, waiting for someone to step on them by accident and set them off. I remember once, just because a friend said, "You talk too much," I was angry for an entire week, refusing to see them. At the time, I thought they were insensitive, lacking understanding. But when I reflected, I realized the real reason was not their words. I grew up in a family that rarely listened, where my feelings were often ignored, and deep inside I feared I am not worth being heard. That seemingly harmless remark struck right at that fear, igniting me. But in truth, my friend never intended to hurt me. It was the old wound in me that had not healed. Much anger is born from expectations. We expect others to understand us, behave exactly as we wish, meet our standards. When they do not, we feel disappointed, which turns into anger. I used to get upset when someone arrived late, but the real pain was not the lateness itself. It was my expectation that they should value me more, care about my feelings more. When that expectation was unmet, I did not know how to express sadness, so I poured it out as anger. We get angry when we feel disregarded, misunderstood, or treated unfairly. But if we look deeper, it all comes down to one thing: the ego being hurt. The ego always seeks affirmation, respect, the right to be correct and acknowledged. When someone challenges that, we flare up, not because they are wrong, but because we cannot bear the sense of being less, wrong, or dismissed. Buddhism calls this ego attachment, the clinging to the self, to our identity, our status, our emotions, even our sense of being right. The more we cling, the more fragile we become. When unrecognized, that fragility manifests, and most often it takes the form of anger. I once attended a Dharma talk where the teacher said, "If you are angry because others don't understand you, ask yourself, do you understand yourself?" That struck me deeply. Often we demand others to know us, yet we ourselves have not fully seen our wounds. We let emotions cloud awareness, anger replace dialogue, expectations replace acceptance, and we suffer. Without deep inner observation, we think we are angry because others are wrong. But in truth, we are angry because something inside remains unhealed. When we understand this, we stop blaming. Each time we feel anger, we can turn inward and ask, what wound in me has just been touched? What expectation am I holding? What part of my ego is hurting? In answering these, we gradually take charge of the energy of anger. Transforming anger is not about trying not to be angry or suppressing it, but about understanding where it comes from. From what pain, what expectation, what ego wound. Understanding it allows us to embrace it, without judgment, without escape, without projecting it onto others. As the Buddha said, "When the fire of anger rises in the heart, do not add more wood. Look at the flame with the light of mindfulness, and it will die down." I believe most of us, though we know we should control our temper, still get swept away when anger comes. I used to be the same. The key is not to forbid emotions, but to learn to be fully present with them as they arise, instead of waiting until they pass to regret. In that very moment, if we can realize we are angry and pause before reacting, the power of anger is already half diminished. Anger comes like a dark cloud sweeping across the sky of the mind. If we act hastily, we react like thunder and lightning. But if we breathe deeply, slowly, and look at anger the way we look at a crying child, we will see that we are no longer the anger itself. We are the observer. The Buddha taught, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned first. I once read this sentence during a night when I was so angry at a loved one that I kept silent for many days. Then I asked myself, who am I punishing? Them or myself? Prolonged anger becomes a heavy stone in the heart, and the one who suffers the most is us. I remember the story of the Buddha and the man who insulted him. A man insulted him the entire day, and the Buddha just smiled in silence. When the man left, his disciple asked, and the Buddha replied, if someone offers you a gift but you do not accept it, to whom does it belong? Such a simple yet profound story. Anger does not come from others, but from our choice to hold on to what they throw at us. In Confucianism, a sage is likened to being as calm as still water, unchanging amidst 1,000 changes. Mencius said, a gentleman has 3 things he does not resent. He does not resent heaven, he does not resent others, and he does not resent himself. It is not that they lack emotions, but because they understand that every burst of anger takes away their inner freedom. When the heart loses its freedom, words, actions, and even destiny itself easily go astray. Calmness does not arise naturally. It is the result of training the mind, disciplining the intellect, strong enough to pause and look within rather than react outwardly. It is the strength of self-mastery, no longer being a slave to emotions. The ancients said, swallowing anger at its peak saves 100 days of sorrow. At first, it sounds like advice to suppress, but in fact, it is guidance to maintain awareness, to observe. The moment of anger lasts only an instant, but the consequences may endure a lifetime. One careless word, one impulsive act can break a relationship built over years, turning a peaceful day into endless exhaustion. Therefore, whenever anger rises, I no longer react immediately. I stop and breathe. Just 3 slow breaths are enough to bring my mind back, to realize where my reaction comes from. Pain, expectation, or ego. In that very moment, anger loses its power. I share this not because I am free from anger, but because I am learning to live peacefully with it, so it no longer controls me. And if you too are on the journey of mastering your emotions, I hope you remember, we don't need to become people who never get angry, but simply those who are fully aware when anger arises. That alone is already a great step in maturity. After each wave of anger passes, what often remains is emptiness, regret, or sadness. Perhaps we have spoken words sharp as knives, perhaps slammed a door that should not have been closed. And whether the other forgives us or not, the first person in need of healing is ourselves. Anger often disconnects us, disconnecting us from the ones we love, and worse, disconnecting us from our own hearts. We turn away, stay silent, refuse to speak because deep inside, we feel guilty. Each time that happens, I remember my teacher's words. Anger is not frightening. What is frightening is not knowing how to return and heal yourself afterward. In Buddhism, there is a beautiful concept, compassion for oneself. Compassion is not only for others, but also the gentle gaze we offer ourselves after moments of mistake. We cannot truly grow if we keep blaming and judging ourselves. Instead of saying, why am I so terrible? We can learn to say, I am hurt, and I acted like a person in pain. Saying this is not an excuse, but an acceptance of our imperfect human condition. I used to be very harsh on myself whenever I lost my temper. But one day, I read Thich Nhat Hanh's teaching, embrace your anger as you would hold a crying baby. That baby is a part of you. That sentence moved me deeply. Anger is not the enemy, but the cry for attention from within. Only when we are gentle with ourselves can we have the peace to be gentle with others. Confucianism teaches the same. Confucius said, the gentleman examines himself, the petty man blames others. A person who, after being angry, turns inward to reflect rather than keep blaming others. That is already the beginning of wisdom. When we shine the light of awareness on ourselves, the darkness of emotion no longer swallows us whole. I still remember the first time I apologized to someone after losing my temper. It was hard. My ego resisted bowing down, fearing to be the loser. But when I lowered my voice and said, "I am sorry, I overreacted because I was deeply hurt at that moment," the other person was silent for a while, then embraced me. In that moment, I understood. Lowering one's voice is not defeat, but the victory of understanding and love. No one is perfect. We are all learning how to live, learning how to love, how to understand, how to apologize and forgive. Anger does not need to be destroyed, but transformed with the light of awareness. If one day you say something that hurts someone, have the courage to approach them, apologize, and open your heart. Not because you are wrong, but because you understand that connection is more precious than being right, and love greater than pride. The ancients said, "The right apology at the right time is a gem of life." It is a kind of courage, a form of love that seeks no victory or defeat. Sometimes a sincere apology can heal wounds that have long ached in another's heart. And if you are the one hurt by someone else's anger, do not rush to retaliate. Perhaps they are already suffering deeply. Anger often makes people say things they normally would not dare to say, and then they themselves suffer too. Give each other some silence. When the heart settles, we can meet again in understanding and compassion, not in conflict. In life, everyone has been angry, but not everyone knows how to return to reconciliation. If you are on the path of transforming anger, remember, you are not walking alone. I am walking with you, and I believe that every step back to the heart is a step closer to joy. To truly transform anger, we cannot just wait until it appears and then deal with it. We must nurture mindfulness in daily life. Anger, like all emotions, does not arise from a single situation. It is nourished by habits, daily thoughts, illusions, and ignorance yet to be illuminated. Anger is like a flame, and daily life is the small twigs of wood. Every time we live in restlessness, lack sleep, eat excessively, or surrender to negative emotions without waking up, we throw more wood into the fire. Then just one spark, a disagreeable word, a small act, and the fire flares violently. I practice caring for my inner life, starting with seemingly small things, a deep breath, a mindful cup of tea, a morning without haste. When I work, I am fully present, not working while scrolling. When I talk, I listen more than I react. When I walk, I place each step as if placing my heart upon Mother Earth. These may seem small, but for me, they are the foundation of a resilient soul, not easily carried away by anger. Awareness does not come from great things, but from patient repetition of small yet right things. I once thought spiritual practice was only for monks, far from the world. But I realized mindfulness is for those living in the midst of life, so as not to be swept away. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught, though one should live 100 years without seeing the highest Dharma, better it is to live one day seeing that Dharma. The Dharma here is not distant or mystical. It is simply when we recognize anger in ourselves and do not let it control us. When we see someone else angry and do not let a storm rise within us. When we pause to breathe and see clearly where we are heading. I recall when I began practicing mindful breathing seriously. I realized that each time I was angry, my breathing changed. Hurried, broken, shallow, and rushed. Instead of replying quickly, I sat down, placed my hand on my belly, and breathed in, breathed out. 3 slow times. The miracle was not only that anger softened, but also that I saw the true reason behind my anger. Sometimes it had nothing to do with the person in front of me. Confucianism calls this self-cultivation. Self-cultivation comes before regulating the family, governing the nation, and bringing peace to the world. A person who does not examine their own body and mind finds it hard to achieve anything greater. In daily life, if each of us adjusted our inner state, society would already be more peaceful. A friend once shared that he often became angry because of work pressure. But when he began exercising regularly, sleeping early, and limiting alcohol, something strange happened. His anger gradually lessened. I was not surprised. Traditional Eastern medicine says anger arises from the liver, from blocked energy and blood flow. When energy is blocked, the mind is stuck. When the mind is stuck, emotions are unstable. And when emotions are unstable, anger is the easiest thing to erupt. A surge of anger does not arise solely because someone else was wrong, but from a disturbed inner ecosystem. If we want to be less angry, it is not only about restraint, but about nurturing healthy energy, eating mindfully, sleeping enough, limiting negative information, choosing uplifting friends, living close to nature, doing what we love. All of these cleanse the mind's atmosphere. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu wrote, 5 colors blind the eyes, 5 tones deafen the ears, 5 flavors dull the tongue, the pursuit of gain deranges the heart. He reminded us that excessive indulgence of the senses clouds the mind. When the heart is not pure, anger rises easily, shaken by the smallest things. That is why the ancients valued simplicity and moderation, not as asceticism, but as a way to preserve clarity and harmony. I once became easily angered due to pressure, lack of sleep, and constant exposure to negative news. When I started filtering what I consumed, both in food and information, my mind grew lighter, and anger struggled to find ground to grow. Not because I had cultivated well, but simply because I stopped sowing bad seeds into my mind every day. Practice is never easy, especially in a hurried, competitive age. But precisely because of this, we must learn to live slowly, so the heart is not dragged away like a wild horse. To be awake amidst the city's chaos is true strength, like the lotus blooming unstained in the mud. I love the image in Buddhism, a lamp in the night. Anger is like the darkness, just one lit lamp, and the darkness dissolves. That lamp is mindfulness in the present moment. When we know we are breathing, living, existing, anger cannot fully possess us. Learning to live mindfully is not to escape anger, but to face it with open eyes and a wide heart. When anger comes, we do not lose ourselves. When others are angry, we do not get swept along, but remain anchored in stillness within. My friends, I share this not because I have achieved something, but because I know each of us has days when storms rise inside. And when someone has once overcome, once quieted their own anger, they can light a small flame for those who come after. I hope to be that little flame, not grand, but enough for you to know that even in the darkest night of anger, there is light, if we dare to turn inward to find it. I once thought merely suppressing anger would solve everything. But no, anger is a strange weed. The more it is pressed down, the more its roots spread. And one day, when we are weak or unmindful, it bursts forth like fire on a dry field. What we need is not suppression, but transformation at the root, so anger has no soil left in our hearts. To do this, we must build a sustainable life of mindfulness, not a fleeting passion, but a long path requiring patience and persistence. Like a forest planter, not expecting a seed to be a tree tomorrow, but still sowing daily. One day, the shade will come. Mindfulness is not lofty. It is simply being aware of what we eat, what we say, what we think, how we live. It does not show off, does not make noise. It is silent but firm, like roots unseen beneath the earth, yet holding the tree steady against storms. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha taught of mindfulness of body, feeling, mind, and dharma, observing oneself in every moment. What the body does, what feelings arise, whether the mind is calm or restless, whether thoughts are wholesome or unwholesome. Only when present with each part can we truly master our inner world. A friend of mine, a businessman, shared that he often lost his temper when facing big decisions, pressured by the fear of being wrong. But then he adopted a very Zen method. Before each important decision, he gave himself 30 minutes of silence. No emails, no meetings, no conversations. Just sitting, breathing, and asking, is my heart clear yet? Clean yet? Only when he felt settled inside would he sign, would he speak. Thanks to this, he regretted far less. That method applies anywhere. Before reacting, return to yourself. Before anger, still the heart. A single word spoken in rage may take a year to heal, but one who is mindful enough not to wound others is truly wise. I recall the story of Zhengzi, disciple of Confucius, who was falsely accused of murder. The rumor spread so far that his mother, weaving at her loom, abandoned it to run to him. Upon learning her son was innocent, she quietly returned to weaving. When Zhengzi heard, he did not grow angry at the slanderers, only said, If the heart is upright, heaven knows, no need to defend. That is the dignity of one who has cultivated himself fully, not angered by falsehood, unmoved by gossip. Such inner strength does not come overnight. It is nurtured through words, through wholesome reading, avoiding pointless debates, keeping the body strong so the heart stays light. There is a saying, when the body is at ease, the mind is at peace. I believe it. One who eats moderately, sleeps well, avoids excess, such a person will not be shaken easily. In the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu also wrote, knowing others is intelligence, knowing yourself is true wisdom. Conquering others shows strength. Conquering yourself shows true power. To conquer oneself, especially when storms rise within, is life's greatest victory. And the only way is to return to living with ourselves, day by day, hour by hour. Someone once told me, I've been hot-tempered since childhood. How can I change? I smiled and said, were you born walking, born speaking? If not, why think temperament cannot change? I too once reacted easily, but I chose not to be a victim of habit. I began anew, little by little, and I believe anyone with determination can transform their nature. The question is, do you truly want to? This path is not easy, not glamorous, not instant, but with persistence, you will find yourself lighter, deeper, happier. I once asked a monk, how do I know I am living mindfully? He smiled. When you no longer need anger to be heard, no longer need to raise your voice to be noticed, then you are living in mindfulness. I pondered long on that. Mindfulness means no longer needing to prove anything, because inside you are already complete. If each morning we spend a few minutes breathing, being mindful, resetting our direction, then gradually anger will no longer be a storm, just a breeze. Like a skilled rower, we will steer our boat straight, no matter the waves. I do not hope you become perfect, never angry. That is not real. I only hope that when you are angry, you know you are angry. When sad, you know you are sad. When restless, you know how to return to the fire within. For only when the flame of mindfulness remains lit will the sky of the heart not fall into darkness. Transforming anger begins not with others, but with yourself. With the choice to live mindfully, to cultivate inner strength daily, to refuse to let bad emotions govern your life. Once truly mindful, you will see. Peace does not come from others changing, but from not losing yourself in every storm of anger. Thank you for spending this time listening and walking with me until the very end of this video. Every deep gaze, every silent pause of yours is a precious presence I treasure. If today's sharing touched your heart, please press subscribe so we may continue meeting in future videos, where I will join you in exploring more profound lessons from life, from the heart, from the wisdom of the ancients. Because every moment of mindfulness is a step closer to peace, and every inner journey is a flower blooming under the light of understanding and love. I send you this heartfelt wish. May you always keep the inner light alive. Know how to return amidst the noise. Guard your heart like a lamp against the wind so that every day passes with mindfulness, peace, and gratitude. See you in the next video.